is too much. How can this be?
R.I.P. Shoe Diva, you would have loved Bimbocore. The early 2000s brought us something truly special. A shoe diva is typically a 30-something woman who lives in the big city and probably works in fashion or advertising. She's got an Amex and a dream. She shops till she drops, drinks champagne, loves bubble baths in her kitschy but totally in a self-aware, intentional sort of way French-inspired bathroom, and of course, shoes. They're Manolo Blahniks.
Men I may not know, but shoes, I know.
I have this little problem. Expensive footwear.
I spent $40,000 on shoes, and I have no place to live? I will literally be the old woman who lived in her shoes.
Sometimes it's hard to walk in a single woman's shoes. That's why we need really special ones now and then to make the walk a little more fun.
Hello, lover.
This fun, whimsical aesthetic is drenched in bright colors, mainly pink, yellow, purple, green, and blue, and she's often accompanied by symbols like shopping bags, cutesy drinkware, tiny pets, curly fonts, hand-drawn line work, and Parisian motifs. Related brands include Chicken Salad Chick, Skinny Girl Cocktails, Chanel, Henri Bendel, Manolo Blahnik, and luxury department stores like Bloomingdale's and Neiman Marcus. Shoe Diva's vibe gives a callback to sort of pre-postmodernist sincerity, with a proclivity for anything bright and feminine, 60s aesthetic cues, diva personas, as well as a pre-ironic embrace of glamour and indulgence as seen with the so-called chick lit and chick flicks of its time. More on those later. She first emerged via commercial products and media aimed at adult women in the late 90s and early 2000s, and remained popular up until about the 2010s. It was glamorous, it was aspirational, it was hyper-consumerist. She's not a shopaholic, she's helping the economy.
But this is a real find.
Just buy it. You don't have to rationalize everything.
All right, I will buy it. It'll be good for the economy.
The term shoe diva aesthetic is of course not contemporaneous to her reign. Many such aesthetics are identified and categorized decades after they were popular, and there's entire online communities and research organizations dedicated to classifying these stylistic commonalities and their relation to their cultural backdrop. As far as I can tell, the origin of the term shoe diva aesthetic originated on an independent Facebook group entitled Shoe Diva Aesthetic. It was formed in 2019 and facilitated discussion of the aesthetic as well as identifying its presence in an array of mediums. I recognized Evan Collins from the Consumer Aesthetics Research Institute contributing some of the earlier posts to the group as well, and it was also briefly mentioned on the Y2k Aesthetic Institute Twitter in 2021. So I'm just going to speed run some of these examples. The aforementioned Chicken Salad Chick, the accompanying illustrations to the Skinny Bitch diet books, Skinny Girl Cocktails, oh, 2000s diet culture, My Scene Dolls, the Fluff brand who is still creating icons in 2024, might I add, the Imagine fashion designer New York DS game. Side note, my sister and I were obsessed with this game, so let me know if you would like an unnecessary deep dive on that as well. The old advertising for makeup brands like Styla and Benefit, and those aforementioned luxury department stores like Bloomingdale's, Bloomies. The art style of Shoe Diva is closely related to another identified aesthetic known as fashion core, and the Shoe Diva illustrations certainly do resemble fashion illustrations, especially those from the 1960s and 1970s. James Sarin, who founded the Facebook group, made a truly beautiful tribute to the origins of Shoe Diva, which he entitled Precursors, and I feel compelled to read it to you in full. In the dark ages of the 1980s, when the Shoe Diva was just a twinkle in Candace Bushnell's eye, the illustrated women of middlebrow culture came in two categories, the idealized and the relatable. The former version, ubiquitous with the windows of beauty stores for nearly 40 years now, was perfected by Patrick Nagel, but as gorgeous and influential as his graphic femmes were, they said more about what men of the time wanted than what women of the time were dealing with. Kathy Gustwaite's iconic Funny Pages heroine Kathy and Hallmark greeting card mainstay Maxine, on the other hand, directly tapped into the pressures of being female in the era of high capitalism and provided different coping strategies faced with the pressure of having it all: job, boyfriend, perfect bikini body, social expectations of fertility, etc. You could either live in a constant state of act, like Kathy, and hopefully / pathetically struggle through life's indignities, or you could throw in the towel and be an amusingly bitter but socially marginal, barren-wombed old Maxine. Fight or flight. Part of the genius of the shoe diva archetype is that it managed to weave together these two seemingly incompatible notions of idealization and relatability: the flawlessly turned out Nagel goddesses and the charming neurotic Kathy. The shoe diva suggested a shortcut to self-actualization, bypassing the pressure to mate and reproduce and please your parents, instead finding fulfillment through rituals of acquisition and self-care. The arena of shopping allowed women a safe place to assert new economic power in a way that felt separate from the masculine social sphere and unthreatening to traditional gender roles. The expectation to have a partner and children was replaced with the expectation to maintain a circle of friends amongst other like-minded women. Although the shoe diva is almost always represented as tall and slender, the focus of her desires tends to be shoes, handbags, cocktails, and sweet desserts. This allows all women with feet to participate in the fantasy, regardless of dress size. I particularly love this point about shopping and social spheres, and I want to establish the historic importance of women shopping and identity. The common reduction of women's interests, particularly in fashion and shopping, as shallow, overlooks their importance in identity and self-expression. In Thinking Through Fashion, A Guide to Key Theorists, Efrat Seelan builds upon Irving Goffman's work on dress and social theory. He presents a wardrobe approach that focuses on the communicative and autonomous function of an individual's clothing. This approach is especially useful in studying women's fashion, as it considers the reasons for choosing what we wear as an act of agency. For one, dress can represent the sense of self, and the choice to wear specific clothing involves an awareness of an audience, which crucially is not limited to the male gaze. Instead, it encompasses a broader range of influences, including societal norms, self-expression, and the desire to connect with or distinguish oneself from certain communities. Seelan's analysis highlights that through dress, women are able to assert their autonomy and communicate their identity on their own terms. By selecting outfits that resonate with one's own personal style and mood, fashion can be a powerful tool of self-expression.
You do not need a scarf.
Then again, who needs a scarf? The point about this scarf is that it would become part of a definition of your psyche. Do you see what I mean?
No, I do. I keep talking.
By extension, the act of shopping historically is fully intertwined with self-expression.
I decided to investigate this theory I had about shopping as a way to unleash the creative subconscious.
All right, I'm gonna take them.
The vibrant boutique culture of the 1960s, the first ready-to-wear collections in the 1920s, all the way to the beginning, that is, the rise of the department store at the end of the 19th century. Did someone say 1920s? I did. Who are you? Oh, you silly thing. It's me, Ethel. Ethel, right. I'm kind of in the middle of recording. Why are you dressed like it's the 1920s? It is the 1920s. The age of jazz, flappers, and prohibition. The roaring ones, dear. No, it's the 2020s. That's a lot of gib-gab coming from a girl wearing a dress from the 1960s. Okay, point taken. Well, anyway, you do look fabulous. Where'd you get that dress? Oh, darling, I thought you'd never ask. It's from BABEYOND, and there's more where that came from. Thank you to BABEYOND for sponsoring this video. I have worked with this brand a few times over the years, and I'm so excited to be collaborating with them. They specialize in 1920s inspired fashion, like this pink batwing sleeve pleated day dress, which feels right out of Downton Abbey. I love the chiffon. It is just so light and beautiful. I also got this champagne colored beaded fringe evening gown. I absolutely love how this moves. A little party never killed nobody, you know. Of course, we also have to accessorize, so I paired it with this pearl tassel shawl, as well as this faux fur shoulder wrap. And oh, the elegance, the drama of it all. And of course, these champagne strappy shoes go perfectly. This drop waist lace day dress is so gorgeous. It's giving Daisy Buchanan. I absolutely love the shoulder scarf. The silhouette is just so 1920s. This gold crisscross draped evening gown, the peacock fan, cloche cap, and gloves, I literally feel like a 1920s fashion plate. I love this darling green pleated ribbon day dress as well. And of course, these classic white Mary Janes. I love how it pairs with a little hat. I feel like I'm about to go catch a train. This blue contrasted beaded fringe flapper dress is just a classic. Like, I need a vintage cocktail in my hand immediately. And if the 20s aren't your thing, I also got this gorgeous 50s inspired dress. It has a really flattering A-line cut design and this really comfortable textured fabric. I'm going to be wearing this all the time. With Halloween right around the corner, it's a perfect time to start thinking about costumes, and I always think vintage inspired looks are the most fun. I'll have some of the outfits I wore linked in my description, so definitely check those out, and thanks again to BABEYOND for sponsoring this video. Okay, where was I? You see, before the establishment of department stores, there were rigid gendered social domains with men occupying a public sphere and women a domestic one. Alongside industrialization and progress, the rise of the department store created a new consumer economy. They began targeting this novel, promising demographic of young, prosperous women, which provided access to a safe public sphere where they had agency and could develop a distinctly modern identity. I think the emphasis on shopping is especially notable with the so-called retail apocalypse that is happening right now. Physical stores with their glamorous displays and the ritual of browsing and purchasing was central to the lifestyle that Shoe Diva depicts. The rise of online shopping driven by e-commerce giants, generic wholesale products, and social media has kind of diminished the fun and really communal aspect of shopping. What used to be a very social, performative act has shifted to a more solitary, convenience-driven practice. With this emphasis on the city girl lifestyle and a passion for fashion, Carrie Bradshaw is believed to have been a key inspiration for the aesthetic.
I had a religious experience at Manolo Blahnik.
In Sex and the City, which aired from 1998 to 2004, we follow a 30-something Carrie as she literally hops around in her whimsical outfits, inclusive of her $40,000 shoe collection.
And you know, I don't play favorites with my shoes, but these were very special.
Who would steal shoes from a party?
Someone size 7 with excellent taste.
From brunch with her best friends to shopping at luxury department stores and trying the newest trendy cocktail bars, we witness her love affairs with several men, as well as her home, New York City, which became a cornerstone of this aesthetic alongside Paris because, you know, fashion. Of course, this portrayal is still deeply out of reach and unattainable for most. This reminds me of that Cosmo girl image, which promised empowerment through financial freedom, material success, and sexual liberation. The Cosmo girl embodied the notion of choice, emphasizing that women can dictate their own lifestyle and desires. This pink-collared woman emerged on top with success in her career, romantic relationship, and glamorous appearance. As with the frequent and frankly bullshit representation of post-feminism, it was merely an illusion, a way for capitalism to commodify empowerment, encouraging women to heal their dissatisfaction through material gain while guilting her about her place in society. In her prime, there was a lot of media that encompassed the presentation and attitudes of this shoe diva. TV shows like the aforementioned Sex and the City, as well as Ugly Betty. Also, the art style and the intro theme for both The Nanny, which came even earlier than Sex and the City, and the Anna Nicole Show. Movies that encompass the shoe diva vibe include the likes of Legally Blonde, 13 Going on 30, The Devil Wears Prada, and Confessions of a Shopaholic. The latter two were adopted by books, The Devil Wears Prada, 2003 by Lauren Weisberger, actually anything by Lauren Weisberger, and The Secret Dream World / Confessions of a Shopaholic 2001 by Sophie Kinsella, actually anything by Sophie Kinsella. Under shoe diva media, I often see the 1996 book and the later 2001 film adaptation of Bridget Jones' Diary, and while it definitely has the markers of a 30-something single woman navigating career and romance, it's missing the crucial emphasis on fashion. I actually really miss this representation of older, more established women in media. These might not be realistic portrayals, but it did feel somewhat aspirational in the sense that it's like something to look forward to. I don't know, it's nice to see older independent women just like living their lives, which I think is one of the reasons why Shoe Diva resonates so strongly. It's often referred to as the womanhood we were promised, with comments like, "This is what I always thought being a woman in my 20s would be like," garnering thousands of likes on each post. The media cited here is part of a genre sometimes referred to as chick lit, with its cinematic counterpart, the chick flick, but not to be confused with the broader rom-com. Chick lit was widely used in the late 90s and early 2000s, capturing the zeitgeist of urban independent women navigating the complexities of relationships, careers, and identity. These novels, often written with humor and relatability, focused on women in their 20s and 30s, typically juggling financial independence with romantic aspirations, all the while looking fabulous. The protagonists were assertive, unapologetically feminine, and often indulged in materialism. The aforementioned novels, such as Sophie Kinsel's Shopaholic series and Lauren Weisberger's The Devil Wears Prada, certainly align with this shoe diva ethos. Despite its popularity, the term chick lit was critiqued for being dismissive and sexist. Critics and authors argued that the label reduced these stories to the superficial tales of the romance and shopping, ignoring the often deeper and more complex themes at play. Terry McMillan's 1992 novel Waiting to Exhale, which was also adapted into an excellent movie, predated the chick lit boom, but it did share many of these themes, focusing on professional women balancing friendship, love, and personal challenges. McMillan's work demonstrated how stories centered on women's experiences didn't have to be light or formulaic. But as chick lit gained traction, its association with pink book covers and glamorous heroines sparked debates about its legitimacy in literature, because God forbid women just like things. In 2005, in a response to growing criticism, author Lauren Barrett's Logstead published This Is Chick Lit, which was an anthology proving that the genre could and often did tackle serious topics. She rejected the notion that chick lit was all Manolos and Cosmos and cookie-cutter books about women juggling relationships and careers in the new millennium, but rather that the genre deals with friendship and laughter, love and death, i.e. the stuff of life. That same year, editor Elizabeth Merrick retorted with her own anthology entitled This Is Not Chick Lit, Original Stories by America's Best Women Writers, which framed the genre as formulaic and reductive, further fueling the divide between commercial women's fiction and literary respectability. Hey, hi, editing me here. So it appears actually that I misspoke. This Is Not Chick Lit predated This Is Chick Lit, which obviously then was the response. For some reason, the articles I was reading could not agree on dates, but yeah, the point still stands. This debate illustrated the wider cultural tension in what was perceived as highbrow versus lowbrow culture, with chick lit usually occupying the lower end of the spectrum due to its perceived frivolousness, namely fashion, romantic entanglements, and a penchant for consumerism. Marian Keyes, a prominent figure in the genre, has been vocal about the sexism underlying in the term. It's as if it's saying, "Oh, you silly girls with your pinkness and shoes, how will you ever run the world?" Yet, as Keyes has pointed out, these stories have certainly provided joy, comfort, and relatability to countless readers. This is the part of the video essay where we bring up the 2008 recession. By the early 2010s, this caricature began to fall out of favor. Our 30-something shoe-obsessed heroine, once the poster child for empowerment through material success, no longer resonated as strongly. As economic reality shifted, publications like Salon speculated that chick lit's fall was not just due to changing tastes, but also linked to broader ideological shifts about value placed on women's entertainment. And this certainly mirrors the cultural decline of this identified shoe diva aesthetic. The aspirational lifestyle of designer shoe collections and glamorous singlehood became less attainable and, in a lot of ways, less desirable. We see this reflected in minimalism in fashion and lifestyle taking center stage. But I think that now that 2010s minimalism is also starting to feel outdated, in a sense, the ethos of the shoe diva lives on, albeit with more self-awareness about its consumerist underpinnings. In the 2020s, there has been a massive revival of maximalism and various Y2k aesthetics, which is highly juxtaposed against the more subdued, minimalistic, sad, beige, clean girl. This brings us to current trends like Barbiecore and Bimbocore, a social media-driven subculture that celebrates hyperfemininity and materialism with a satirical, self-aware, and seemingly more inclusive twist. Bimbocore openly embraces a superficial aesthetic, but it does so with an underlying critique of societal expectations and gender roles, and often mixes mixes in pretty progressive ideology. I think it's definitely more of a subversion than anything. While this genre may no longer dominate bestseller lists, movies, and advertisings the way it once did, its influence is certainly present in today's media. Shows like Emily in Paris borrow from the same well of glamorized singlehood and indulgent lifestyles, updating the aesthetic for modern audiences. As I was a young girl growing up in the 2000s, there's something undeniably cozy and nostalgic about Shoe Diva. She inspires a sense of whimsy and escapism, which in this micro-trend dropshipping corporate bold glamour filter hellscape is sort of comforting in a very 2000s let's be naughty and order dessert kind of way. Yes, she was indulgent and hyper-consumerist, but she had personal style, she had confidence, and she had fun. I hope you enjoyed this somewhat excessive deep dive on this Shoe Diva aesthetic. I have just been seeing it everywhere lately, and it awakened something long dormant in me, and I just had to talk about it. I would love to cover some more of these nostalgic aesthetics being identified from eras bygone, so if you want to see any more of that, definitely let me know. If you liked this video, I would really appreciate if you liked and subscribed and maybe left a respectful comment, and I will hope to see you in the next one. Okay, bye!